Many sellers across York region are losing a fortune. I'll talk about that and get into the latest home prices and insights for York region for week ending January the 3rd, 2024. Many of you watch these videos every single week and you've not yet subscribed. What are you waiting for? Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button so you're reminded when these videos come up. So, sellers across York region, many of them are losing a small fortune. Now, if you've owned your property for many years, you're probably okay. But those sellers that bought 1 and 2 years ago, if your plan is to sell now, so you've only owned your home for 1 year or 2 years, if your plan is to sell now, for many of you in York region, the best you could hope for is to break even. More likely, especially if you've owned your home for less than a year, more likely you're going to lose money. Now, you're going to lose $50,000? Are you going to lose $200,000? Are you going to lose $500,000 or more? And we've seen examples of all of those. There's one property we were tracking, we were interested in it with one of our buyer clients. This seller purchased a property February last year. So February 2023, they purchased for $2.5 million. For whatever reason, they are selling and they listed it this past September. So 8 months later, they listed their property for 2.6. I know I'm throwing a bunch of numbers around. So they bought for 2.5, listed for 2.6. Sounds so far pretty good. Maybe they might have a small shot at breaking even, right? Well, it didn't sell at 2.6. They readjusted their price a month later to 2.4. Then they readjusted their price again before the end of the year to 2.3. Then they've pulled it off the market. It is now January. They relisted the first week of January for 2.1. It hasn't sold yet. Now, is it going to sell for 2.1? Is it going to sell for 2? Is it going to sell for less than 2? So they've not realized the full extent of their loss yet because it hasn't actually sold. But we know they bought it for 2.5. We know they paid land transfer tax. And we know they're selling it now for sale listed for 2.1 and it hasn't sold yet. So right away there's a $500,000 loss or so when you pull in the expenses and it hasn't sold. And there are, unfortunately, numerous examples like this across York region. You know, when prices were appreciating across the GTA, York region saw some of the biggest, massive increases in home values. However, that coin has two sides to it. Now York region, for many areas, is experiencing the exact opposite. As prices across the GTA decline, prices depreciate, York region is seeing some of the largest price depreciation, some of the largest depreciation in home values. So when times are good for sellers or homeowners, prices went up quite a bit. Now the opposite is happening. They're seeing some major drops in home values. If you purchased 1 or 2 years ago, it seems the best you could hope for is to break even. Now, this is not in every single pocket. What happens in your neighborhood is unique to your neighborhood. Some people, I don't know of many neighborhoods where prices have actually gone up. In most cases, lucky to break even. Chances are, especially if you purchased a year ago or less, you're going to lose money on your sale. That's York region. Huge ups, but huge downs also. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. If you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, up here there's a link to my calendar. In the description below there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. Now, let's get into the York region numbers. Folks, in this report, our first report for York Region for 2024, we're covering detached properties only for Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham. Here's a quick summary. Again, detached properties only. I have the numbers here. Average sold price is broken down per week. I have 3 months on the board. Now, before I get into this whole report, I need to talk about a part of the calendar that I call the twilight zone. And this is the area leading just before the Christmas holidays, the holiday season, and New Year's. So it's just before, during, and just after. There's not a set date. It could be 1 or 2 weeks prior where the numbers get a little bit wacky a little bit. And sometimes often we'll see sales totally drop at this time of the year. We'll also see certain properties that maybe haven't sold. Many times, very expensive properties listed in the millions haven't sold. And in this time, they actually end up selling. There's a big price drop, for example, but still, the price may go from 4 million to 3.5 million or 3 million, and it gets sold. Yeah, there's a price drop, but it brings up the overall averages. All sorts of crazy things that happen for those 1 or 2 properties at this time of year. And because sales are so low, volume, it affects the overall number. So I just want to say that I'm calling that area the time twilight zone. And well, here's the average sold price. Markham up here at 2.1 million. Richmond Hill at 1.8, Vaughan way down here at 1.6 million. So take these numbers in a twilight zone with a grain of salt. They may or may not be indicative of what truly is happening in these areas. We're going to start off with Vaughan for week ending January the 3rd. 6 detached properties were sold, only 6. One of those was at $2 million or more. Average sold price is down to $1,615,000. Prior to that, leading into this time of the year, the holiday season, average sold price were trending down. Now, there's lots of peaks and valleys because sales are so low, and then you get these properties over $2 million. Sometimes we sold quite a bit where there was 8 and 9 being sold in certain weeks, and other weeks 2 and 3. And that's why you get these big peaks and valleys. Compared to last year, $1,615,000, 18% lower than it was for the same period a year ago. The median price is $1,515,000, and that's 20% higher than what it was for the same period a year ago. 6 were sold. None of those sold at list price or more. There's always some percentage. It could be just 1 or 2 or 3 selling at list price or more, but over the holiday season, none sold at list price or more. Listings have been coming down. Very few. 3 were listed the prior week. 7 were listed for week ending January the 3rd. Active listings coming way down. Now, they're coming down, active listings, not so much because there's been a ton of sales. You could see the orange, those are the current sales. It's not because tons of properties are being bought. The majority of those properties, the listings naturally expired at the end of the year, or sellers chose to pull their properties off the market. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens now this year, how many of those come back on the market, and what price are they deciding to come back to the market with. Months of inventory shot way up to 8.1 months of inventory. Remember, that's based on 3 sales. We know that's not indicative of what normally happens in Vaughan for detached properties. But when you look prior, I've got 3 months on the board. Many times we're sitting at 5 months of inventory or a little bit higher, or just under 5 months. And we say between 3 months of inventory and 5 months of inventory is a balanced market. More than 5 months of inventory is a buyer's market. And so when you look back, it's kind of, I put here, buyer's market versus balanced market. It really depends on the neighborhood. price point will be a big factor, and whether that house type and the price point is more of a buyer's market or a balanced market. Here's Richmond Hill. For week ending January the 3rd, 7 detached properties were sold. 3 of those were at $2 million or more. Close to half of them were at $2 million or more. Average sold price shot up from one week to the next to, it's now sitting at $1,828,000. Prior to the TZ, the Twilight Zone, prices were trending down for Richmond Hill. $1,828,000 is 22% lower than where the average sold price was the same time a year ago. The median price of $1,720 is 18% lower than where it was this time a year ago. 7 were sold. None of them were sold at list price or more. Listings went from 3 listings the previous week to 8. So not a lot, but we will see an increase in listings. Active listings dropping down for the same reason I just explained for Vaughan. And that's the same reason across the GTA that active listings are coming way down. It's mostly because properties have come off the market. Months of inventory, going too far. My clicker stuttered for a minute. Months of inventory sitting at 5.4 months of inventory. But if we look at the overall prior to heading into the holiday season, similar to the Vaughan region, we're hovering between a balanced market and a buyer's market. Here is Markham. For week ending January the 3rd, 4 detached properties were sold. 3 of those, 75%, 3 of those were at $2 million or more. And that's why you get this $2.1 million as the average sold price when 3/4 of the properties are selling at $2 million or more. Of course, you're going to hit an average sold price that high. But prior to the Twilight Zone time, average sold price were trending down. $2,109,000, no surprise, 12% higher than what it was for the same time last year. The median price is $2,191,000. It's 30% higher than what it was this time a year ago. 4 were sold. None of those were at list price or more. Listings dropped down. Of course they did, but they bounced. We went from 3 to 16 listings, active listings dropping down. Months of inventory though, shot way up to 8 months of inventory. But prior to that, now remember, Vaughan and Richmond Hill were hovering between a balanced market and a buyer's market. Markham, more competitive. Months of inventory, generally speaking, has been much lower. Many times not even making it into the balanced market corridor. So you're going to kind of, the sense in Markham, if things stay the same in January, the way they were prior to the holiday season, in some areas it's going to be quite competitive. Again, it depends on the home type, price point, but in other areas it's going to be more of a balanced market. Not too many buyer's market situations across Markham. Here's a quick summary of months of inventory. Look, these numbers right now for the first week out of the holiday season, it's for week ending January the 3rd. Part of that week was New Year's. Day before New Year's, lots of people shopping for homes. New Year's Day, this is all part of the whole numbers and why I'm calling that zone the Twilight Zone. But the next report is going to be a full week of the new year. We know there's buyers that have pulled back, now looking to come back into the market. We know there's sellers that have come off, now looking to come back in. This is going to be, without a doubt, a very interesting and exciting year for real estate across GTA, but in particular for York Region. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.